A 5-year-old prince just said something on a royal balcony that triggered an internal security response inside one of the most controlled institutions in the world. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a joke. And it wasn't something he was ever supposed to know. Because what Prince Louis whispered forced palace guards into action, cut a royal appearance short, and reopened words buried in restricted archives. And when you hear what those words were, you'll understand why the silence afterward was louder than any explanation. Breaking news because my favorite royal is making headlines again. Prince Louis, yes, that Prince Louis has somehow managed to steal the spotlight once more, and this time it wasn't just adorable, it was disruptive, it was unsettling. And for a few seconds on that palace terrace, it felt like the entire monarchy forgot how to breathe. From the moment Louis stepped onto the balcony, he looked unusually aware of the moment. Hundreds of eyes fixed on him, cameras locked in, tradition hanging in the air like an invisible weight. At first, everything appeared normal. Bright spring sunlight, familiar smiles, polite waves, and cheering crowds. It was the kind of carefully staged royal appearance designed to reassure the public and project unity. But then something happened that no one expected. Instead of sticking to the script, Louis delivered a line that cut straight through the celebration. The crowd's energy shifted in an instant. Mid-cheer, whispers began to ripple. Palace guards stiffened. Aides exchanged quick, questioning glances, the kind of glances that signal something has gone off course. It was as if the innocence of a child had collided head-on with centuries of strict protocol. Prince Louis had already been stealing the show at Trooping the Colour again, but this moment was different. Cameras captured it clearly, preserving the exact instant a routine balcony appearance turned into something far more significant than anyone could have imagined. The question spread quickly, even among insiders. What could a 5-year-old possibly say that would make trained professionals immediately spring into action? Those closest to the royal inner circle weren't amused, they were rattled. The sentence, simple on the surface, seemed to echo in the minds of people who live and breathe. The scene had been designed to be safe and familiar. Flags fluttered, cameras clicked in rhythm, and the Wales family stepped forward with the precision expected of a public appearance carefully orchestrated for consumption. Prince William stood tall and steady, composed in the way the future king is expected to be. Catherine moved with her usual elegance, calm and controlled. Prince George held himself with quiet discipline, and Princess Charlotte smiled with an ease that already looked practiced. And then there was Louis, energetic, curious, visibly thrilled by the noise, the faces, and the ocean of waving flags below. For a moment, everything moved according to plan. The crowd applauded, the cameras flashed. The guards remained statuesque along the terrace perimeter, but those closest to the family sensed a shift beneath the surface. Louis's attention wandered away from the crowd and toward the guards near the edge of the red-carpeted area. His gaze was bright and fearless, the kind of unfiltered confidence only a child can carry. He tugged gently at an aide and stepped forward, small steps, hesitant but determined. Then Louis leaned in toward a guard and whispered something too soft for the public to hear. The guard bent slightly, listening closely. Louis spoke again, this time clearly enough that aides nearby caught fragments. The reaction was immediate. The guard's jaw tightened, his shoulders squared, his eyes snapped toward a senior palace aide, and within moments another guard lifted a hand toward his communication device. To the public, nothing seemed different. Smiles continued, cheers rolled on, but inside the palace machine, tension crackled like static in the air. Movements that had been smooth became sharp and purposeful. The spacing of the security details subtly shifted, and calm was replaced by quiet urgency. Catherine noticed at once. She moved toward Louis with controlled speed, placing a firm yet gentle hand on his shoulder. For a brief instant, the mask of calm slipped from her face, revealing a flicker of concern before she returned to practiced composure. She whispered something to him and guided him back into position. Prince William observed the exchange and gave a subtle nod, no words necessary. Witnesses later described the atmosphere as thick, charged, and strangely tense for what was supposed to be a light-hearted public celebration. Within minutes, a decision was made. The appearance was cut short. The family left several minutes ahead of schedule. The motorcade moved faster than usual, and security presence increased as they returned to the palace. Publicly, nothing was explained. No announcement, no clarification, no reassurance. But behind closed doors, questions hovered with growing intensity. What could a child say to trigger such a coordinated response? Why did one sentence disrupt a system designed around centuries of control, secrecy, and ritual? And deeper still, could a child have accidentally uncovered something the palace had worked very hard to keep buried? Inside the palace's quieter inner rooms, aides initially assumed the moment would dissolve into harmless mischief. Surely a child's remark would fade away, but that assumption vanished almost immediately. Following protocol, a soft-spoken aide trained to manage children under pressure knelt beside Louis and asked him to repeat what he had said. There was no nervous laughter, no playful dodge, no hesitation. Louis looked up steadily, eyes clear, and repeated the sentence slowly, deliberately, as if he was stating something certain rather than making an observation. The room went silent in a way that felt heavy, not calm. Catherine, standing nearby, visibly paled as the words settled in. Her reaction wasn't panic, it was recognition. Those closest to her noticed the signs immediately. The sharp inhale, the frozen posture, the look of someone hearing something that was never meant to be spoken aloud, especially not by her youngest child. Without drawing attention, she excused herself. Her silence carried its own message, louder than any question. Palace insiders later claimed Louis's words were not random. They echoed a phrase buried deep within a highly restricted security briefing, a document known only to a tiny circle of palace officials. The similarity was precise enough to trigger immediate concern. Within minutes, palace security activated a confidential protocol, quietly raising the internal alert level to an unusually serious tier, one reserved not for simple incidents but for patterns. Behind the scenes, everything shifted. Patrols increased, secure communication channels tightened. Senior analysts began combing internal logs, camera feeds, and access records from the previous 2 days. Every movement within the palace walls was reconsidered. Louis, meanwhile, was escorted to a secure playroom filled with familiar faces and routines. To him, it likely felt like nothing had changed, but for the adults around him, everything had changed. What unsettled them most wasn't only what he had said, but how he had said it, calm, deliberate, and certain, as though describing a fact. The phrase began circulating quietly through corridors and briefings, repeated under breath like a warning none of them wanted to say out loud. They're watching from the walls. As night deepened, the palace command wing reached a chilling realization. The sentence Louis spoke had history. Records confirmed it had appeared only once before in a sealed briefing from years earlier during the later reign of Queen Elizabeth II. The report had referenced a security irregularity in the royal living quarters and labeled it a lexical anomaly with no known source. The question that haunted everyone was simple and impossible. How could Louis have repeated it so precisely? While analysts traced timelines and searched for explanations, Catherine retreated to her private quarters and did something that suggested this wasn't merely a misunderstanding. Behind a locked door, she moved a chair, an old gift from Queen Elizabeth, and revealed a thin envelope hidden beneath it. The seal was faded with age. On it was a single word written carefully, Clarion, a name never spoken aloud, known only to Catherine and the late Queen. She read the contents quickly, her expression unreadable, and then destroyed the pages completely. When she returned, calm but firm, her instruction was simple and unsettling. The East Wing corridor must be monitored again. Elsewhere in London, Prince William was attending a military charity event when his secure phone vibrated in a precise pattern, one he recognized immediately. Without explanation, he departed, noticed by onlookers and captured on phones. By the time he returned to the palace, gates and stairwells had been secured, scans were underway, and one of the oldest response systems embedded in royal protocol had been triggered on instinct alone. Inside the palace, an unease spread quietly but unmistakably. Senior staff exchanged looks heavy with memory, the kind that comes from having seen something once before and hoping never to see it again. Some of the older generation recognized the wording instantly, phrases they had heard decades earlier but never repeated aloud. Louis's statement, unsettling on its own, did not exist in isolation. It mirrored language buried deep in royal history, tied to documents that had been quietly removed from official indexing and stored in restricted chambers beneath the palace. Among them was a letter long dismissed as metaphor, titled A Consideration of Unseen Observers. For years it had been brushed aside as reflective writing from another era, but now, with a child echoing the same cadence, that dismissal collapsed. When the senior archivist retrieved the only untouched physical copy that night, one line, blacked out in every public version, stood fully visible, and it didn't read like poetry. It read like a warning. There are those within our own walls who do not serve the crown but watch it patiently waiting. The implications were staggering. If words hidden for generations could somehow surface through a child, what did that mean for everything the monarchy believed safely buried? What followed was not meant for cameras, not meant for public eyes, but the internal response grew sharper by the hour. Teams began cross-referencing documents that had never been examined together. Security plans, private correspondence, classified briefings, and archived anomalies. Patterns emerged, phrases repeating across centuries, isolated observations now forming a web too precise to ignore. Outwardly, the palace remained serene. Internally, it shifted into heightened alert. Staff moved faster, spoke less, and followed instructions without question. A single sentence from a 5-year-old had bridged generations, forcing the institution to confront shadows it had long treated as harmless reflections. As unease deepened, attention subtly turned toward Catherine. Calm, composed, and quietly informed, she had always moved with deliberate restraint inside palace life. Now she appeared central to understanding what was unfolding. Inner circles began asking the unspoken questions: what had Louis truly seen, and who was capable of interpreting it? Catherine held symbolic access to a concealed chamber within Windsor known only to a handful of custodians, the Blue Room, hidden behind a reinforced panel near the late Queen's private study, absent from official blueprints, never accessed by routine staff. Its velvet-lined drawers held diaries and letters reserved for future queens, meant to guide rather than alarm. Recently, Catherine had uncovered a set of Queen Victoria's personal diaries. One entry described an encounter with Victoria's youngest son, who had spoken words he could not have learned, referencing unseen watchers and shadows moving through the East Wing at night. Victoria recorded it not with hysteria, but with clinical concern, noting the child's silence afterward and admitting she was unsettled to her core. One line stood out as hauntingly specific: "He is not unlike one that shall come, one who shall speak again what was never taught." The resemblance to Louis's calm, precise words was undeniable. Even more disturbing, Victoria had noted the child's exact location during the episode, and it matched the same East Wing corridor now under renewed surveillance. Catherine had shared only fragments of these findings with William, withholding the full depth, fearing it would sound unbelievable. But now, with her own son repeating language that mirrored history, the pattern could no longer be ignored. History wasn't just echoing, it was repeating. Just as palace officials believed the tension was contained, something happened that no protocol could stop. An anonymous whistleblower within the guard ranks leaked a classified incident report to a tabloid, and the fallout was instant. The story detonated across media platforms at staggering speed. Headlines screamed that Prince Louis had repeated language drawn directly from a royal security file, and for the first time in more than a decade, no official statement arrived to steady the narrative. The leaked file landed after midnight in the inbox of the Evening Ledger, delivered through an untraceable encrypted source stripped of metadata. Editors moved carefully, verifying phrasing, cross-checking terminology, contacting trusted sources. What pushed skepticism into urgency was confirmation from a former palace employee turned informant. The language matched an internal operation known only to a narrow circle, Obsidian Key. By morning, the headline dominated global news feeds like wildfire, and at the center were the same words spoken innocently by a 5-year-old. "They're watching from the walls." The article claimed the phrase wasn't merely unsettling, it was structurally identical to coded language used in classified scenario briefings known as the Omega Protocols, circulated between the late 1990s in absolute secrecy. Designed to test the monarchy's response to national emergencies, foreign threats, and internal anomalies, these protocols were never meant to surface in public, never meant to be echoed by anyone outside senior circles. To see a child reproduce language so close to it was unthinkable, an intelligence nightmare wrapped in innocence, a scenario no royal advisor could have predicted. The palace responded with deliberate silence, no denial, no reassurance, no attempt to explain, and that silence only fueled obsession. Commentators and analysts demanded answers. How could a child repeat words buried in classified files? Was it coincidence, a leak, or something far darker? Who could have exposed Louis to those phrases, and why had dormant language resurfaced now through a child on a balcony in public view? Pressure mounted quickly. 2 guards stationed at Windsor during the terrace incident were quietly summoned and interviewed. The process was discreet, but the ripple traveled fast. Within days, 1 guard resigned without explanation. The paperwork called it routine, but the timing screamed fracture. Something inside the palace, meticulously controlled for centuries, was beginning to crack. By the morning after the leak, Windsor and Kensington moved with silent urgency. Staff followed training, but their movements were tense, sharp-edged with suspicion. Public engagements were cancelled or minimized. Louis remained calm, surrounded by familiar routines, yet his presence became more carefully managed than ever. Catherine all but vanished from public view, absorbed in private consultations, document reviews, and security monitoring. The household was no longer responding only to outside attention. It was bracing for a storm from within. The public frenzy grew beyond expectation. International news networks, tabloids, online forums, and social media erupted. Some hailed Louis as a beacon of truth, a child whose innocence cut through centuries of controlled messaging. Others warned that his words had exposed vulnerabilities inside an institution built on secrecy, suggesting deeper dangers buried within palace structure itself. Inside the family, tension sharpened. Reports claimed Camilla, angered by the headlines and suspicious of their origins, confronted a senior courtier over breakfast in a heated exchange filled with accusation and frustration, suggesting the Wales camp may have orchestrated the narrative to sway public opinion and shift internal influence. For the first time in memory, the palace appeared divided not just by hierarchy, but by alliances, suspicion, and long-standing resentments resurfacing under pressure. Then Parliament began to stir. Opposition coalitions demanded inquiries into possible national security risks connected to the heirs. Lawmakers pressed hard questions about how sensitive phrasing could enter the public domain, even indirectly. Calls for transparency grew louder. Some questioned whether palace secrecy had fueled confusion, or worse, masked systemic vulnerabilities that had gone unnoticed for generations. The story had outgrown palace walls, and no simple statement could contain it anymore. What began as a cheerful public appearance had become something else entirely. Louis's words, "They're watching from the walls," had transcended childhood curiosity. They had become a catalyst, bridging past and present, innocence and authority, observation and revelation. The monarchy faced a question it had long avoided: what truths lie dormant in its corridors, waiting for the right voice to awaken them? Now I want to hear from you. What do you think Prince Louis truly saw behind those palace walls? Could a 5-year-old really echo secrets buried for generations? P a comment below, and if you want more royal revelations like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for the latest updates. Now I want your perspective. Do you believe Prince Louis simply said something innocent that spiraled out of control? Or do you think he unknowingly echoed something embedded deep within palace history? Comment your theory below, I read them. And if you enjoy this kind of layered royal analysis, where we connect history, protocol, and hidden details you won't hear anywhere else, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the next chapter of this story may already be unfolding, and you won't want to miss it.